I'm Mike from To The Point Podcast, and I'm here tonight with Joann Binford. And our guest tonight is Rebecca Boone. Did I say that right?
Yep, you nailed it.
And I'll go ahead and let you introduce yourself.
Sure. So my name is Rebecca Boone. I'm actually the wife of a first-time candidate for U.S. Congress, John Huron.
John Huron. And is this the first time John's run for office?
It is the first time that he's run for office, although I will say that he was elected to CEO and Chief Technology Officer and multiple other high-ranking appointments at the companies that he worked for. So, albeit this is the first spin in politics, he's definitely been chosen before.
That's great. Now, what do you feel? How do you feel about being on the campaign trail?
Well, it's really funny because John asked me, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to run for Congress." And I said, "That's great, sweetie. You do whatever makes you happy." It's a free country. That's wonderful. I really had no idea everything that it was going to take just to get to this point and the things that we would encounter. And it's been a real journey.
Yeah, it's been a real journey. I mean, we met John Huron way back in August and have really gotten to know John and you as well and what he stands for. And all of that is great. It's really what our nation needs, Florida needs. So tell us a little about what you learned during the campaign.
Yeah, so it was interesting. And I think I came to the process obviously relatively blind, thinking that this is a country for the people, by the people, and you stand up and you put yourself out there and you say what your values are and you try to find people that align with your values and then go to Washington, D.C. and represent the people who elect you, right? And I thought that the candidates would be level on some fields. And just through our experience with running, have really learned that is really not the case. There's a group, there's certainly an establishment, a very well-funded establishment, and going up against that kind of money and that kind of power in a race like this, it's extraordinarily difficult.
Did you expect some of the shady politics you might come across?
No. We expected some things. We really and truly did. And the way that the press, and I say the press lightly because a lot of the press is paid for, the way that they word things to make them sound significantly more nefarious than they are about, the deepest they could find was, there's a fake ID at some point while my husband was a minor and he got caught with it. Well, they make it sound like, he's trying to cross the border with bad papers, and it's insanity. It's true insanity. So, but when we did start doing some opposition research we actually got a lot from just concerned constituents that said, "Hey, you really don't know what you're up against." And we started to dig in a little bit ourselves, and then we got a lot of help from other people, and just come to find out some of the things that John's competitor was involved in the past decade or two. It put a knot in my stomach. This person cannot be elected to represent the people of Florida District 8. I don't think even at his core, he's a good person. I think he's sincerely out at it for the money, and he's proven that to be the case. I'm from the Midwest. A lot of people who live in Florida are, even though you guys hate that, but there's quite a few from just about everywhere, though, and I think that's what makes Florida and District 8 so great. But Harry Truman was the only president that came from Missouri, and one of his sayings was, "Show me a person who got rich in politics and I'll show you a crook." And I think that crook is showing himself right now.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate. I'm sorry, go ahead, Joann.
Go ahead. MJH Consulting is one of those businesses that Trump was warning us about in 2016. And I think I've blasted that video of, we need to get the lobbyists out, where they rebrand themselves as consultants, but what they really are is lobbyists. And that's what I found in John Huron. He is not John Huron, but Mike Paradopoulos. And that's really the only business that I can find that he's really been after he left the Senate. And that is telling of who's going to represent the people. So I agree with you that there's a lot of establishment stuff out there, and that's where the money comes from when you get into the lobbying and you start working for these special interest people and groups and large companies. And how many of them are not U.S. citizens companies? How many of them are out of the country that are working through a U.S. citizen that's here? There's loopholes in all of that. And when you're in it for a long time, you start learning how to play the game. You start learning the loopholes, and that's how it becomes dark money.
It does. Yeah. And a lot of what we saw, we got the information from some of our constituents and we just followed the path, right? And some of what we uncovered in particular with the Stronach group and some of Mike Herodopoulos' dealings with them. And we have backup documentation for everything. It's not as if we're just pulling this out of the wind. One of the most concerning things to me was the fact that he helped push forward a deal where the Stronach group and their Adena Farms and Silver Springs property could take more than 3 million gallons of water per day from the Floridian aquifer. That's the same aquifer that everyone in District 8 depends on for our fresh water. And you're just going to give that away to the same guy you gave a $1.2 million a year tax break to run that exact same property. Well, if he's not paying those costs, the people of Florida are. We get it in fees. We get it in taxes. Is that who we want to send to Congress to represent us? I don't think so.
No, I'm going to jump in here. Now, the district is a lot, it's the Space Coast and Treasure Coast, correct? So
it is.
It's covering a pretty big county just in Brevard and Indian River.
Mm-hmm.
What is the water? What's the temperature like in Brevard? Let's say in those big areas, those big donor areas, like Suntree and Merritt Island, and those other areas.
So when you say the temperature, you mean as far as
the support John may be getting as far as the inside politics?
Yeah, the inside politics is challenging, right? Again, it's a machine. It's PACs that donate to PACs. And it's very difficult to follow the money. And you have PACs that donate to campaigns. So, for example, you had Friends of Mike H., right, that distributed significant amounts of money. You can check out my Facebook page just over the course of the last 4 years, even though his last election was back in 2012 2011 and 2012 when he had a failed attempt for U.S. Senate. And a lot of these people have received money from a PAC or a PAC of a PAC or a donation or, a different organization. And so it's hard to tell. Are these people really supporting John's competitor because they feel like he's the best person for the job? Or is money being flowed to them through these different PACs and they feel, indebted to this individual and that's why they have to support him? So John's got really good support at the ground level. He has great support from small businesses. And that's the support that he really wants. It's not politicians and politics that he's looking for endorsements. It's small business and small business owners. And we've had some really, really great folks reach out and support them on that.
And I think one of the first times I met John was at a pizza parlor in Vero Beach, Cap's Pizza.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in his campaign, he said the majority, I believe that was that date, the majority of his income, the contributions were from small donations. Is that correct? How is that? Is that still the main fuel behind John's campaign?
Absolutely. So he has self-funded, $150,000 self-funded, which I'm not going to lie, a scary lot of money, but yeah, we've gotten some great donations, $100 here, $300 there. And it's really, really helpful. And that's more than any of us should have to donate. It should be fair on some level. And I think his proposal that if you can't vote, you can't donate is a great step forward to getting this government back to the people and out of the hands of big businesses and billionaires and foreigners.
Yeah. So, that's That's how it should look. Getting donations from your constituents, because that's the people's vote. You're working for the people. When you see a lot of these bigger donations in the $2,500 range, or the $1,500 range, and then you have the PACs. And the thing about the PACs is the committees are used by campaigns to do things law forbids candidates to do, or to keep their names confidential of these enormous contributions. And
Sure.
that's why PACs can be deceiving. And when somebody's using PACs, you have to wonder, okay, who's funding him? It's really hard to know. Is that really the people's vote? Is that really the people's support? Or is that some special interest that's going to be asking for certain things? They end up in the legislature making laws, and we want them working for us, not for special interest groups, which happens all the time. It happens all the time, it, because we sit there and say we have a majority Republican House or Republican Senate. Why did they vote that way?
Yeah.
It's because they've been in there so long and they've learned how to work with loopholes and the PACs, and they're not working for us.
Well, it's interesting because you look at somebody like Mike, and he made, I think, $890,000 last year or a couple of years ago. And if you're making that much, why would you turn around and take a job that pays $170,000 a year? It makes no sense. I mean, you're doing such a good job over here. Why turn and take this? Well, because the opportunity to get money from PACs, I mean, I liked Bill Posey. A lot of people like Bill Posey. How many people have looked at Friends of Bill or Friends of Bill Posey and that PAC that pushed him forward? The expenditures out of there are just enormous. The PACs are what pay these people to live. They pay for parties and gifts and cars and pretty much you name it. I mean, yeah, you could have somebody taking $170K as a salary, but on the back end, they're getting millions of dollars in payments and support for their life and lifestyle. And it's just up to us, the individual voter. It's extraordinarily time consuming to go into the FEC filings and dig through each thing line by line. But, when you start to really see what they're spending this money on, it's mind boggling. And the amount of money that flows through is really crazy. I mean, so the Speaker of the House put together a super PAC where the maximum contribution per contributor is $890,000 a year. That's not the people. It's not the people. It's not what this country was made for. It's not what our government was made for. They might as well put a for sale sign on the front of Congress.
Yeah, it's not. It's crazy because then people want to go by endorsements. Hey, how do you think Mike got his endorsements? He's a lobbyist. If you look at all of the campaigns that he's supported with hundreds of thousands of dollars, those people owe him when he's ready to collect. And when he's ready to collect, it's like, hey, I'm running for office. Why else would he just jump in the race 1 hour before qualification is over, while all the other candidates that are running throughout the year are knocking on doors, visiting their constituents, talking to their constituents, and all of a sudden he has all of these endorsements this very same day he drops in 1 hour before qualification closes. If you look back, he's a perfect actor. He helped a lot of people in office, all the way down from Sheriff Ivey to even Sheriff Flowers, even to Anna Paulina Luna, Rick Scott, Marco Rubio. He has helped all of them. And Posey, look, Herodopoulos, I watched a video where he said he believes in term limits because what it does is it allows a constituent to come from the neighborhood, go to office, and then go back. And it gives you a it gives you a fresh person that's been living in the community, paying taxes, going through all of the laws that are happening currently, rather than somebody who's been in office forever. But what did Mike Herodopoulos do? He raised thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep Posey in office, going into a 9th term.
Yeah.
A 9th term. Yeah. So that's coming from someone who made a comment about how good term limits was great, and how effective it was. He even states that he wouldn't have gotten into the Senate if he didn't step in for somebody that had term limits. Term limits helped him to get to where he was at. So
Mhm.
this is a politician that has been in long enough to learn how to play the game to where he's not even living by his own words. And that's what happens. They say one thing and then they do another.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think term limits are critical. I also think it's important to have people who are not born and bred politicians go to Congress. I really and truly do. This country has to be for the people and by the people. And that's how we get, fresh ideas. It's how we eliminate or suppress corruption. I mean, I just, when you look at the net worth of some of our senators and Congress people, 300 million, Rick Scott. I mean, that's great guy. Everybody loves him, and I know that he had a big business as a hospital executive, and he made a lot of money that way. But what's the average income of Florida District 8? I will tell you, or the average household net worth. It's not $300 million. It's also not $100 million, which I have no idea what Mike Herodopoulos' net worth is, but I guarantee it's significantly, more than what the average Florida District 8 homeowner has.
Yeah. Yeah. And, a lot of the people are looking at those endorsements, and I wish they would stop looking at the endorsements and do a little bit of research. I really feel we need representatives to start running to do their terms and move out because it's going to stop people. It's going to discourage people from running when it costs so much money to run. A regular good businessman that's a grassroots person is going to have this challenge to fight against the establishment. You really, who's selecting our local representatives? Is it really us, or is it all the money that's being filtered and bought out to make these people win their elections with, from the media, all the mail outs, all of that costs a lot of money. But well, I'm getting inundated with stuff in my mailbox already.
Mhm.
And all of that money helps to push a candidate, whether the people want them or not, because what happens is the people see it over and over and over and over and over again. And then all these people that you helped win are going to endorse you now. And that's what the people see. And we need to get a new system in place that is for the people and is to push these grassroots candidates like John Heerton that can really represent the people. I mean, he's
Yeah.
he's here visiting, going everywhere he can possibly go to reach and share his message and show us that he's ready to run for us and stand for our America first and our conservative values. And that's what we need.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Joanne. And it's $100,000, $50,000 every time those mailers go out. And a lot of these politicians go through organizations like data targeting. That's one of Patrick J. Bainter's firms. And he's on record. He was part of the gerrymandering scheme in 2012. He's on record as saying, so what? When he was asked about, hey, you send out these ads that are technically false, he said, so what? And it's like those people, everyone who receives one of those ads, just like this last week, there was a mailer that went out that had the GOP and the Brevard Republican Executive Committee on the mailer, completely unauthorized, saying all these candidates are endorsed and indicating, or at least putting forth that those organizations had endorsed them when in fact they hadn't. And they're going back and taking some legal action against the people that mailed them out. But that's still in the voter's mind that, oh, these guys are endorsed by this particular group and they're really not. And that's tens of thousands of dollars for that one particular mailer. So it gets to be a lot. And you're right. So, and John's not just a great candidate because he's a business person and he was called by God, although those things are all true. John has negotiated millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in tax savings for the United States taxpayer. He's done it by bringing together huge organizations, like the Department of Defense and the Department of Justice to use the same technological infrastructure versus duplicating it, which saved more than $300 million for the Hawaiian Internet Consortium. He's also worked to protect our assets from procurements by the Chinese. There was a deal where Global Crossing was a company that had all of the infrastructure for our internet throughout the United States, or at least the majority of it. They were one of the first, and a lot of times first to market goes bankrupt, and so they were up for sale. And there was a Chinese company, Hutchison Whampoa, that was coming in to buy it. And before John had briefed Senator Stevens, that deal was very close to going through, meaning the Chinese would have owned nearly all of our internet traffic. So he's made big, important decisions before, working with Congress, working with very large government agencies. That's the experience that he can take to Congress for us, and the negotiating skills working with those agencies and Congress and represent us in our interests, not special interests.
So earlier you had mentioned the Stronach Group. What types of businesses was Frank Stronach involved in?
So the two biggest businesses that we researched were really horse racing and gambling, and then also the Adena Farm Silver Springs property in Marion County, just south of Ocala. So the Stronach Group, and they've been through a lot of different family battles, and I highly recommend anybody to Google the Stronach Group or Frank Stronach, just to see some of the organizations and entities that he was involved in. But Gulfstream Park, the horse racing down there, was probably one of the biggest ones. And then also Adena Farms, like I said, just south of Marion County. He did also own Pimlico Racetrack up in Maryland and had done business up there with some casinos, gambling, and horse racing. And Pimlico had fallen into such disrepair that he's actually turning it over to the state of Maryland now. Of course, he's under some legal questions up in Canada at the moment.
So he's a foreign entity, pretty much.
Yep, he's an Austrian-born Canadian. Mm-hmm.
So he's a foreign entity doing business in our states, pretty much.
Yes.
So do you think he's had any effect on our casinos down here in Florida, or does he want to get into our casinos in Florida? Because I heard the casino and the gambling, and, what did you find out there?
Yeah, so there were big tax breaks that were passed, and I'm not insinuating that it was a pay to play, but there were big tax breaks passed to build Gulfstream Park and the affiliated casino there, and build up that affiliated land right there. So the Stronach Group is definitely already in Florida with gaming and horse racing and gambling. So my research had found that my Caridopoulos is also still a part of Group 5 partners. I can send you I can send you documentation on everything that I'm speaking about today. And that Gulfstream Park is a client of Group 5. So there's still compensation going to Mr. Caridopoulos via that route from the Stronach Group or their Gulfstream operations.
Wow. And Florida, correct me if I'm wrong, but Florida, the casinos, isn't that like for the Indians in Florida? Don't they have like dibs on that?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what all of the details are. I do know that the Seminole tribe was ordered to pay $1.2 billion. I think it was over the course of 3 years or 5 years. I'd have to reference my notes for the rights to have gambling and card games and things like that. So it was very interesting to me that, they had to pay that money, but yet our Florida state legislature turned around and gave a Canadian a tax break on doing, similar gaming. So we'll charge our Native Americans, but, we'll give a foreigner a tax break.
Wow. So that sounds like a perfect example of not looking out for the people.
Yeah.
And looking out for the special interest.
Yeah. And I think the point is, it's all of the people of Florida District 8, right? It doesn't matter your skin color or nationality or honestly, even your political leaning. It's John's job when he goes to Congress to listen to everybody, every single one of his constituents, and represent their voice in Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a lot of information. What do you think about that, Mike?
I think it paints a picture as to politics. I think overall, we us on the right, we know how crooked the Democrats are because they show us. They show us every day in the news. They show us every day in the papers. We read it anyways. We know it's a bucket of crap. What's sad is when we see that on the inside of our own party and the backdoor deals, and when it comes to the just the shadiness locally. I mean, and we always talk about how politics start local. I mean, from the school board to District 8, the Congress seat. But it paints a picture as to the game you have to play or the price you have to pay to get into it. And it's sad for guys like John who are trying to get there to do good things the right way. And I'm not saying that this guy wouldn't get a good thing or two, but who's he going to align with when he gets there? So it's unfortunate. We see that, and it's a good thing for primaries because without them, we wouldn't know any different. If this was just a shoe-in for whoever's endorsed by whoever, none of it would come to light. And there again, our biggest problem on the right are the Republican in names only. And I think this is, guys like this, I believe, give Republicans a bad name.
I almost feel like he just came in so late in the game so that nobody would have enough time to really do any research on him, because there's a lot of information. I was looking around, just who is this guy? Who's this guy that just jumped in the race here? We've all been supporting our choice of candidates because they've been in the race for so long, and this guy jumps in and he's supposed to take the reins and run with it. And, I just looked up articles and I'm finding that there was a situation with the Greer case and through the RPOF where a settlement case. And so I put that out there. And that's what I love about the primaries. It's like, look, I support Republicans, but this is the time to tell the truth, because like Democrats, nobody told them the truth and they went and voted for the wrong person. And in the primaries, we got to weed out the guys that are not going to be representing the people. So I started putting stuff out there that I found. And look, we've got to have really good candidates to go in there to represent the people. And the establishment it's taking it away with all of the optics. That's what I call it. It's optics. It's look who endorsed me. Oh, look what I did. He's not going to tell you of the things that he wasn't successful at. He's only going to tell you of the things that were successful. And whenever I see information, I don't see I'm a lobbyist. I'm a consultant. So people optics. So those are the optics that they're using, and people look at that and listen to that, and they don't do their research, and they're like, hey, this person did this person did that. But to me, the primaries are, let's do our research on these folks and make sure that we're electing the right person. So that's why, Mike, I started Binford Chronicles is where you get access to the candidates, because people, the outside people, us, the constituents that are working every day taking our kids to games, we don't have that much time to do the research and look it up. So that's a lot of good information about that.
Yeah. Well, and I'll be honest with you, Joann, I work full-time too. I'm just a regular full-time worker. So this has all been like nights and weekends and things like that. And like I said, I wasn't really interested until I started digging into it. And I think a lot of people, I've been criticized today of, well, people care more about what your candidate is going to do than, you taking jabs at the other guy. And I'm like, but there's a lot of people who have come to Florida in the last 10 years that don't know this guy's history, that haven't read all the articles, that aren't aware of some of these things. And if you don't put it out there, they'll vote because they saw a pretty sign, or they'll vote because they met him once. And you really have to know at the core who you're voting for. And that's why we put a lot of the information out that we have. And it's meant to educate more than anything. And you make your decision on August 20th.
Yeah. The primaries is so important at this time.
They really are.
Yeah, I think Florida overall, I love my state and I love the right. I'm not, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative first, but it's pretty, being in a red state, in a red county, in a red region, I think it's even more critical when we vote local. the candidates we choose, because I mean, how else are you going to get a job in a red state by putting on the red tie? So we need to make sure the guys putting on the red tie mean it. So, and I think this is unfortunate. What is the next? What are we expecting from all this information? Are we expecting any type of investigations or anything like that?
From my perspective, Mike, I really just want people to read it and know and be educated when they go to the ballot box. I don't. It's not meant to crush or kill anybody or their business. And I think, Mike Herodopoulos raised $3.6 million in his failed Senate attempt, and then he, used the next few years to dole that money out as he was lobbying legislators. His fund ran out of money. Friends of Mike H is closed and zeroed out. So, maybe he can just use the funds that he raised during this congressional run and keep going with his consulting business. We're not out to make anybody, be in a bad situation, but you have to know before you go to the ballot box. And if you look at John's background, it's, business, it's fair practice, it's working with big government agencies to save taxpayer dollars, not to go, oh, hey, I passed the largest tax break in Florida history, and not mention that the majority of that was for businesses and corporations, while you gave the taxpayers an extended homestead exemption and a back to school tax holiday.
Yeah, it's
it's really important for the voters to know.
Yeah. Okay, so we got the gloomy part of this whole campaign. What's the highlights for you, Ben, as the wife of John on the campaign trail? I mean, as far as from where you're standing, what's been the highlight for you?
Ooh, wow.
If there is one.
I got to meet so many amazing, wonderful people who really, really still care about our country. And it has given me hope that those will be the people that do a little bit of research, that go to the ballot box and vote for a change, that vote to make it different, to vote anti-establishment. There are people who still care about this country deeply and who don't want to see it sold to the Chinese, or don't want to see our farm and agricultural space turn into giant high rises for people that may or may not have come here legally. They want to see people with jobs and not on the government dole. That's the way that I was raised. You get a job, you go to work. I had a job when I was 15 and a half, which is the earliest legal age you can be employed in the state of Missouri at that time anyway. And I've worked ever since. I've paid into Social Security. It breaks my heart that Social Security is going to be bankrupt by 2035. I think we owe everyone who is paid into that system to get paid out, whatever you can, so that you can retire someday. You don't need to be 80 and still working, or 88 and still working. If you want to, that's fine. But I think you should also have the opportunity to save and retire and live in this beautiful country. And I think that's part of the American dream that's being stolen from us every time I have to go to Publix and pay $200 for groceries that used to cost me $100.
Okay, not to be totally over with the gloom, on the 13th, the President Trump attempted assassination. How did you guys receive that, and how did John take that?
It was a scary day. I think it was a scary day for the country. It was certainly a scary day for anybody who is putting their foot forward and standing up and talking about their values and about what they want to see for our country, even if it's not the most popular opinion, right? And let's be honest, Donald Trump, there are a lot of people who don't agree with him. And that's fine. That's your right and your prerogative as an American citizen. But you should not be killed over it. It's your right. You have freedom of speech. The person who attempted to kill him, it's completely just heartbreaking that anyone would even try it. But let's be honest, in our history, we've seen it before. So we need people around the president to protect him. We need our Congress people to be safe and protected. Steve Scalise, he was shot when he was playing baseball. I mean, he's another good, so violence has no place in politics. I don't believe really that violence has much place anywhere. I love President Trump's peace through strength, and I think we all have to try to live that, not only as good Republicans, but as good Americans.
Yeah, well
Great
said.
answer. Yeah, great answer. How is the ambiance with the latest news of President Biden dropping out of the re-election campaign? Does that affect John in the mood of the campaign? I mean, I don't know how it is on the inside of a campaign of this magnitude. I mean, obviously, all news is news when you're in politics. So, what do you got? What's your guys' take on that?
Yeah, Joann, I'll let you take that one right off the bat.
Well, I'm thinking that she's just a stand-in, and they've got somebody else that they want to put in. I think the games aren't done yet. Because not a lot of people really are gravitating to her. I know they raise a lot of money, but I still think that there's something else in the back she's just right now.
Yeah, I take another take. I'm sorry to cut you off, Rebecca, but I tend to agree with where I think you were going with that, Joann, because you were starting to break up. But I believe well, first of all, Democrats should be pissed off because they didn't vote for her. They didn't vote for her in the first primary for president she ran for. They didn't vote for her this time either. So a lot of Democrats aren't going to have a say in who their nominee is. Maybe. I also believe that she's their sacrificial lamb. Because before the 13th, let's face it, everything was looking good for Donald Trump. Since all the court cases started turning around, it just started stacking one by one, and then the assassination attempt. So it's pretty much Joe's not going to win. Nobody likes Kamala, so let's put her up there on the altar to be sacrificed and go away, hopefully. And let's not spend the political capital somebody like Gavin Newsom might have in 4 years against a J.D. Vance, possibly. That's my take. I'm sorry, Rebecca, what's your take?
No, yeah, I'm in agreement with you. It's just another demonstration of a bought and paid for puppet. And I think the Capitol, the White House is just full of it, and we have to put a stop to it.
Well, I think we can all agree on that. Yeah. I'm all out of questions. I'm glad you were able to get with us because it's something special for you guys to be in the community as much as you are. I know where we're at down at the south end of your district, we're kind of like the down in the corner, we don't see much, but unless you're in the political atmosphere, but you guys have done a pretty good job of getting out there. And I hope Indian River County pulls through for District 8, and I hope Brevard County does too.
Yeah. Me too. Yes, definitely vote August 20th. Puritan for Congress. He's like I said, small business owner, a lot of experience working with big government agencies, and he will represent the people, not the big special interests of Florida District 8. He's the guy at the bottom of the list, but should be at the top of your hearts when you go to vote.
Joann, did you have anything else?
Yeah, and let's get that information. Yeah, just that, we just need to get that information out so the voters can make an educated, decision on who they want to represent them. And that's really important. So let's get that information out, give it to the people, and let them go to the polls and decide.
Yeah, agree entirely.
Rebecca, you said we can find that information where?
Yep. So there are a couple of sites you can go to. whatisaheralobbyist.com. That's a whole lot of words. You can also go to scandalousherodopoulos.com. It's also tough to spell, but I'll send you the links. And if you want to know the right guy to vote for, it's puritanforcongress.com.
Great. Thank you. Joann?
Woohoo! Yep, I agree. In Congress, I think we need change, especially now. We see how far the corona has gone. We need change. We need people that are out there that are going to represent us. So definitely let's look up these websites links that you said send us, and let's share it out here. And hope everyone agrees with us that we need.
Joann, you're breaking up pretty bad, but I think we got the message. Get out there and vote, and we'll get that information out, and we'll spread this around as much as we can. And we'll Well, thank you again for joining us. And that's
Thank
it for tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Bye.